Hey everyone, thanks for checking us out. It's the Commander's Brew. You know us, we're the guys who are putting together some weird, wild decks with a lot of fun cards and fun angles on a pretty nice little budget most of the time. This one is a secret Saffi Eriksdotter deck with Rien at the helm. Check it out. All right, we have a brand new deck tech for you this week, and it's an interesting one. It's a different style. So I was inspired by, of course, the recent Time Spiral Remastered set that came out. Got a set review of it that we let drop last week. If you want to go check that one out, we run down some of the more relevant commander cards and some things that we were kind of excited or interested by. And one of those cards was the inspiration for this week's deck, which is, of course, Saffi Eriksdotter. Again, not a new card here because everything from Time Spiral was a reprint. This one saw some new art specifically, but Saffi Eriksdotter is just a card we kind of are pretty familiar with in Commander. It shows up a lot in a lot of different decks. And it's something that I wanted to try and build around this card instead of like having it just be in the 99, which is kind of ironic. And when you'll find out what's going on here, well, you probably know because of the title of the show. But anyways, Saffi is a green-white legend, human scout. She's a 2/2. You sacrifice Saffi Eriksdotter, and when target creature is put into your graveyard this turn, return that card to the battlefield. So she's a real combo-tastic commander. There's a ton of infinite combos that involve Saffi Eriksdotter and can do many different things. So when people see her as a commander, they kind of know what they're in for, right? They're going to kind of infer a lot of stuff based on that. One of those commanders, again, not like it's crazy powerful. She's not one of these like, tier A, we got to kill this guy right away. But people are going to generally know what that you're going to be looking at some combo pieces and stuff, which is why one of the reasons why I actually wanted to make a secret Saffi deck. Yes, she is kind of our, commander here for this deck, but yes, she is in the 99. But we're going to try and get her out as often and as quickly as possible because she really is the linchpin to our strategy here. Now, Sean, you can read our actual commander that we decided to go with because it really does jive pretty nicely with Saffi and some of the other cards we have in the deck. So this isn't simply a commander for the colors. Like we might want to cast this commander at some point during the game as well.
Before we do, can you leave Saffi on screen though?
Yes.
Is that Eric? Is that Hans running in the back?
I think so.
Right
yeah.
there?
Because on Hans's card, she's in the background.
Oh, is she? I didn't notice that.
Yeah.
That's neat.
So I guess they wanted to give it different, like they wanted to give, although he's not just like sniffing a flower.
No, he's running.
Yeah. Hans run, right?
Yeah.
And it's the Lurgoyf I found out that kills both of them. I don't know.
Well, but presumably we have to assume Saffi's going to sacrifice herself so that
Eric lives.
Hans comes back.
Lives, right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That must be what happened. I'm not too familiar with the lore surrounding the card.
Anyway, the real commander.
Yes,
the real person this is built around. Rien, Angel of Rebirth. 2 red, green, white. We're adding red to the deck. Legendary creature, Angel, 5/4 flying. Other multicolored creatures you control get +1/+0, and whenever another multicolored creature you control dies, return it to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. Well, with Saffi alone, that's just Saffi's gonna save something, and then this is a lot of work.
Yeah, then we're gonna get Saffi back. Right. This is not the main thing we're trying to do here. We don't need Rien for any of the stuff, but if you get a chance and you can cast Rien and it doesn't hold you back from any of the other stuff you're doing, it's a fine play. So it's just a nice, usable card we have in our graveyard, in our command zone. Let me tell you though, okay, brewing with Discord, we had a lot of stuff going on, a lot of cards coming in. It was tough to not make this a Rien deck. It was tough not to plan for Rien's ability several times we had to like, okay, let's all refocus and actually remember that we're building this about Saffi. But we got there, we did it, and we had some fun doing it. We had some great suggestions coming in through the Discord there.
Nice.
So we got Saffi here, we got Rian. There's one more other card that actually works as a bit of a like inspiration for this deck, and one of the reasons I wanted to add red to it is Call the Forge Master from Kaldheim. Red white 2/2 legendary dwarf warrior. Whenever another non-token creature you control dies, if it was enchanted or equipped, return it to its owner's hand. Creature tokens you control that are enchanted or equipped get +1/+1. Not really using that secondary text, although it could come up because there are some tokens in this deck and there's equipment in this deck. Really, this is just another way. We kind of have this like 2-tier thing where Rien can do it and Cole can do it, and Cole is like a way that we want to be able to make this happen, so we've included a bunch of equipment in this deck as well, all built around getting Saffi to come back after she dies. You can equip her up and then do some things to the point where we basically want to, the idea behind the whole deck is there's a couple of value creatures that we have in this deck that are going to be sacrifice, dies the ETB triggers, because when they die and they come back, they'll trigger that again, and then get the benefits that they give us, and then we can even use that equipment to push through our damage and get in with actual attacks. And I play tested this deck, and in my opinion, it's a classic me deck. It's a classic 80 hole.
Okay.
Which for me means like feels a little scatterbrained, almost looks a little scatterbrained. Like if you look at this, you might say this deck lacks a little focus. But I love this style of deck because it almost feel like it's got three sections of it that all work and synergize really well together. And if we miss any one of those pieces, the deck actually doesn't mind. We can still work fully as an equipment deck. It can still work just as a like combo, some stuff with Saffi, combo deck, even without stuff like Cole and Rien. And then there's also this general good ETB value style deck that's in here. It all works together. It all synergizes really well. You might get some pieces a little out of order once in a while, but it kind of doesn't matter. Like you just play them and they'll come in handy when you need them to. So let's start talking about setting this up. And speaking of Cole the Forge Master, let's talk about like two of the. We don't have a ton of equipment in here, but we've got some nice key pieces that are going to be very helpful.
I mean, Skull Clam arguably goes in most commander decks, regardless of what you're doing. It's a single mana. It's an equipment. It equips for 1. Equipped creature gets +1/-1. Whenever the equipped creature dies, draw 2 cards. So good. So good. And Sylvok Lifestaff, a single mana for an equipment. It equips for 1. Equipped creature gets +1/+0. Whenever equipped creature is put into a graveyard, you gain 3 life. A little bit of life gain.
Which can really come in handy. Sometimes you're just in a position where you're like, man, I wish I could gain some life right now. And if you have a Sylvok Lifestaff, you're just going to create that buffer for yourself, which can be really helpful. Because again, if you draw everything you want, you're going to do very well with this deck. If we don't draw the part that has a lot of removal in it, then you're going to probably get attacked, and you might not even have great blockers because you might have like your combo side of it. But that's where Sylvok Lifestaff comes in, because that's going to create the buffer for you to use the combo pieces to gain a bunch of life with this equipment, and ideally maybe even with Skull Clamp to draw out of that situation and still do well. Part of what we decided as a group, I came to the group with the group being our patrons in our Discord, was I wanted to combine these cards, Saffi and Cole, and you really use Saffi's ability to the max. And one of the things that was pointed out was like when you do this with Naya colors, unlike let's say with like Abzan or something, where when we recur the creatures a lot, we're getting like a lot of life loss and like pinging effects and things like that. With red, you and white, you end up getting a lot of like destroy stuff or dealing damage to something. Taking care of permanence with green also is like a big thing. Two of them that came up that ended up being really good was, of course, we got Fiend Hunter, which is just great removal. 1 white for the 1/3. When it enters, you exile something, and then when it leaves, they get that back. But if you know the O-ring trick or the Fiend Hunter trick, or if we can sacrifice this while it triggers on the stack, you just get to exile it, right? You don't have to worry about getting it back. Same thing goes for Skyclave Apparition, which is like kind of a newer, different version of Fiend Hunter. So it's 1 white for a 2/2. It's a core spirit. When it enters the battlefield, you exile up to one target non-land, non-token permanent you don't control with converted mana cost 4 or less. So there's some real conditions there. But you really get paid off because when it leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner creates an XX blue illusion creature token, where X is the CMC of the exiled card. So it can't be any higher than 4. So you're never going to give them some giant monster if they get rid of this or something. But this can take out like key equipment, artifacts, enchantments. It can hit non-token, non-land permanents. I found it to be excellent. I found it to be very good. You can just play this early and just nab someone's Soul Ring. If they kill it, they get a 1/1. Honestly, big deal. But that it doesn't make a big deal in the long run of the game. Soul Ring gets people there, right? So,
like, I'm happy to give them a 4/4 instead of their Smothering Tithe. Also, like, that's also an excellent move.
Exactly. So yeah, it's a surprisingly relevant and useful card in Commander, considering the amount of restrictions on it. I saw this card being played most recently in Vintage Cube, and was like, what, I think that has utility in Commander, and it certainly does. So that's the type of thing. That's the main crux of it here. We're getting dice triggers, ideally using equipment, and then we're going to use some of these cards for removal and things like that, and then be able to plow through with creatures. Let's talk about some of the vegetables, some of the things we need to get this working. Sean, why don't you read the first 3 things? And I mean, it's all ways for us to get our commander, our secret commander, Saffi, but they're also just ways to get any creature, of course.
Sure. One of the best, Eldamri's Call, green-white instant. Search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Amazing. 2 mana.
Yeah, recent reprint in Modern Horizons, I think, as well, which brought the price down from where it used to be. So it's somewhat much cheaper than it was before.
Brutalizer X Arc as well, 5 and a green for a cleric 3/3. When it enters, you choose one. You either search your library for a creature card, reveal it, put it on top of your library, or you put target non-creature permanent on the bottom of its owner's library. So you can bury something you don't like or get something you do like very close to drawing.
This one's great because it works doubly, of course. Before you have Saffi, you can use it to get Saffi, and afterwards you can use it to take care of some non-creature permanents, which is awesome.
Yeah. And of course, Sentinel Flute, 5 generic for an artifact, and it has the activate ability X tap. Search your library for a creature with converted mana cost X or less, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle. Saffi costs 2. It's kind of like Eldamri's Call on a flute.
And repeatable, which is nice. 5 mana is a lot for this ability up front, I feel like, but this is an oldie. This is like a classic one from our early days of Commanders, where I remember using this very early in our run because it was so hard to find creature tutoring stuff. It felt like a real throwback getting Brutalizer X Arc and Sentinel Flute in this deck.
Yeah.
But it works. It does the trick, and it can be really good, especially some of the other stuff we have in the deck. I also noted here in the vegetable category a very key and important board wipe, actually. I mean, obviously, we're running board wipes in Commander. However, we've talked about how many we like to run versus how many other people like to run. Doesn't matter. Austere Command has had a very recent reprint, and it's one of the best board wipes in Commander, period. And it is the best board wipe in this deck, period. 4 white, so 6 mana for the sorcery. Choose 2. You destroy all artifacts, destroy all enchantments, destroy all creatures with CMC 3 or less, or CMC 4 or greater. This deck has a lot of creatures with CMC 3 or less, and it has a lot of creatures with CMC 4 or greater. There will be times, and I experienced this, where it's like, okay, I'm going to blow up all enchantments and all of the big creatures because my whole board survives that, which is obviously great, right? And then there's just times where this is just a regular board wipe, which is also great. Like, the flexibility obviously is what makes Austere Command great, and this deck really uses it really well, because if we have one of those like kind of modal pieces of this deck, kind of, whereas like if we have the combo part, most of the CMC is quite low, so we'll actually be able to conserve that even though we board wiped.
Nice.
Which is nice. And next we got some good old-fashioned sack outlets. We need these for Saffi.
You got a Martyrs Cause is a great one. 2 and a white for an enchantment. Sacrifice a creature. Prevent all damage to a creature or player from one source. It's a weird ability, but we might not care about it. We just kind of want that sack outlet. So it's 2 and a white for unlimited sacrificing.
It's kind of nice to fog something too, if like, you know, they are attacking you and you're like, well, I would just block with this thing and die, so I can maybe utilize the sack outlet instead. Like, yeah, I'm sure this can come in handy.
Yeah. We've also got Culling Deus. I like this one a lot. 2 mana for an artifact. Tap, sack a creature, put a charge counter on it. 1, sack Culling Deus, draw a card for each charge counter on it. This ends up getting pretty full as the game goes on. But even if you only end up getting a couple of cards off it, that seems very fair to me.
Yeah, absolutely. Even if at like 2 or 3, it can be worth it to especially if you draw one of your other sack outlets, right? Like, absolutely use Culling Deus for whatever it is you have there. Oddly enough, kind of tough to find card draw in these colors. You'd think green would provide a good amount of it, but when we're talking about small creatures, there's only a couple of green cards that want to draw cards based on the number of creatures you have, and like if they're not green, there's even less of those cards. So like actually a lot of the traditional green card draw isn't that good here, or at least the affordable stuff. Like I will talk about it in the budget section, but I don't run Oran Frostfang. Is that the big one? Is that the one that we previewed? Anyways,
yes.
The better version of the Orans, because it's like so expensive now. So we had to try and find some other ways, and Culling Deus works for that.
Yeah. And finally, Fanatical Devotion. 2 and white. Enchantment, again. Sack a creature. Regenerate target creature. This is surprisingly useful, like, just not... Like, a lot of times your free sack outlets are kind of useless. Right? Prevent damage from one source. I mean, you probably would rather just sack when you want, rather than sack to just save a few points of damage. But like sacking to regenerate a creature is pretty good. It basically, at worst, it turns board wipes into half board wipes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And there's a few other ones, we got some, evolutionary leaps and some of the good green ones, but, but these were just some interesting ones. And again, a little bit of a throwback here. I remember talking about Martyrs Cause and Fanatical Devotion on some early episodes of Commander's Brew. So very cool.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what we need to get, to get the deck where we want it to be. That's the kind of stuff you want to see early. That's the idea, the direction we want to go in. So of course, once you get all that out of the way, all that's left to look at is the neat move.
Working on a
neat
move.
That's right. So, as I kind of hinted at, there's a lot of neat moves in here because Saffi is she's a combo heavy commander. She's a combo heavy card. She combos naturally with a lot of stuff because her ability alone needs another thing there to do her thing, right? It just makes sense. So the traditional route is to use stuff like Revlock, 4 and a white for the 4/3 flyer that says when Revlock leaves the battlefield, return up to 2 target creature cards with power 2 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. And it can evoke for 5 and a white. Amazing card, obviously works very well with Saffi, where you get this and you get like Karmic Guide or something back, and then you get to just do it forever. Also Sun Titan, 4 white, 6/6 giant with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may return target permanent card with CMC cost 3 or less from the graveyard to the battlefield. So with a sack outlet, these cards, Sun Titan and or Revlock, basically go infinite. Yes. Yeah. They create an infinite loop, right? And then the things that you do is like you have obviously like a Blood Artist traditionally, or you have like I said, Karmic Guide works well with Revlock, and you can get your whole graveyard back. Well, I didn't actually include any of the other things. I didn't include Karmic Guide. I didn't include... Now, that's not to say that these infinite combos don't have a way to win the game. They do. It's just a little more than that. I didn't want to rely super heavy on these traditional ways, although I did include them. I decided in the end it is just worth it because games got to end, right? I mean, that's a phrase I hear more and more every time I play Commander. Games have to end. We do have to have a winner at some point. So don't be afraid of winning. And these aren't super fast ways. Revlock's a 5-mana card. Sun Titan's a 6-mana card. You're not going to get these things right away. Especially when Saffi's not your commander. That's the other thing, right? She's not our actual commander. So it's actually a lot tougher to put this 3-card combo together. And even when you do, you still need that 4th card for the payoff. So listen, you don't win the game if you have a sack outlet, Sun Titan, and Saffi. You just don't. You get to do something forever, but you don't actually win the game. So it is in here. I just wanted to tell everyone that, and then there's other ways to do it. One of the ways that you can make this happen, make this be a win, is with this next card, Sean.
Ooh, Flayer of the Hatebound. 5 and a red, devil, 4/2 with Undying. So when it dies, if it doesn't have a +1/+1 counter, you return it to the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Whenever Flayer of the Hatebound or another creature enters the battlefield from your graveyard, that creature deals damage equal to its power to any target. Flayer is going to come back and do 5 somewhere, but also all of the Saffi shenanigans in an infinite loop will do infinite damage to anywhere.
Exactly. Game's got to end. We had to include a card or two that did this, but really we're kind of looking more for like a half combo, half value situation. So we've got these 2 cards, which are kind of like a value or like a Saffi light combo. They're not really. I mean, I'm sure you're going to find some ways to make this work the way you want it to. But Sean, read these next 2 here because they have a nice little synergy.
Sure. Wild Kantor is a single hybrid Gruul, so either red or green. 1/1 human druid. Sack Wild Kantor. Add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. Net 0. You can cast this card and get that mana back. Net 0. Storm
0.
count.
Yeah.
And Vesperlark, 2 and a white elemental, 2/1 flying. When Vesperlark leaves the battlefield, return target creature with power 1 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Evokes for 1 and a white. Okay, so Wild Kantor is power 1 or less.
Yeah, and this is like half of a Revlock. There's definitely some situations we can get in where we're using Saffi to bring either of these cards back, and we're doing some sacrificing. Sometimes you'll be a mana or 2 off, and you'll be able to find that Wild Kantor in the graveyard with a Revlock or a Sun Titan or a Vesperlark. Like, there's a lot of ways to do it. So that can be very nice. We also have, again, more for like the value side of things, Caller of the Claw. This also is kind of a way to win with the combo, but it's a much slower way. 2 and a green for a 2/2 elf with flash. When Caller of the Claw enters the battlefield, put a 2/2 green bear creature token onto the battlefield for each non-token creature put into your graveyard from the battlefield this turn. So if you can do it, if you get that infinite combo, great. You're going to get 1,000,000 or infinite bears or whatever. But what's more likely to happen is that you'll have a couple of these different creatures out. You'll be able to do that Saffi thing once or twice with someone else because you have that's just what you have. And then Caller of the Claw is going to make you 5 or 6 bears, which is still really good. So like that situation is still fine. And it's even really good to just play Caller of the Claw if nothing's died, and then later fill in the blanks there. Maybe get some equipment on Caller of the Claw. If you've got Cole out and doing its thing, sacrificing it, letting it come back, like you know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to happen the turn we play it. It's totally fine to let Caller sit out there and then for us to sacrifice it, bring it back with Saffi and do its thing from the battlefield, basically. Yeah, really good stuff. This next one is just like a good card, and then we have the payoff that follows it right after. So read these next 2.
Okay, Tithetaker, 1 and a white, human soldier, 2/1. During your turn, spells your opponents cast cost 1 more to cast, and abilities they activate cost 1 more to activate, unless they're mana abilities. But also Afterlife 1. When Tithetaker dies, you get a 1/1 white and black spirit creature token with flying. We're also looking at Hallowed Spirit Keeper. 1 white, Avatar, 3/2, Vigilance. When a Hallowed Spirit Keeper dies, put X 1/1 white spirit creature tokens with flying onto the battlefield, where X is the number of creature cards in your graveyard. We're going to have a pretty full graveyard. I've seen this card make a lot of spirits.
Yeah.
It's very good.
The crazy thing is this card is really good even if it only makes like 2 or 3. Like
Yeah.
it's still actually great. And especially again
Yeah.
in this deck where we can oftentimes, bounce it / sacrifice it. Saffi's ability to get it happening twice. That can be more than enough. Pairing up with some kind of an anthem effect like we have, or an equipment that'll allow a flyer to get in and do something really cool, or even just skull clamp a bunch of the 1/1s. Like
Sure.
Hallowed Spirit Keeper is one of the best cards in the entire deck because it fully takes advantage of the fact that we've had all these creatures come out. We've sacrificed a lot of them. Maybe even someone's board wipe, whatever. It doesn't matter. Spirit Keeper is really great. It's a dice trigger. Keep that in mind. It's not an ETB.
Yeah.
I did play
Oh,
play
yes,
it once thinking
yes.
it was an ETB and was like, oh, okay. This was a great suggestion from our Discord. Tashar, Ancestors Apostle. 3 and a white for the 2/2 flying legendary bird cleric. Whenever you cast a historic spell, return target creature card with converted mana cost 3 or less from your graveyard directly to the battlefield. This works
Directly.
It doesn't say directly. I said that because that's how it makes me feel. It feels like, yes, we're doing it. This works, of course, with historic things, which are legendaries and artifacts, and sagas, of course, but we don't have any sagas in the deck. So actually, this deck has a surprising number of legendary creatures and a bunch of artifacts. And if this gets us Saffi back once, if this even gets us back a Hallowed Spirit Keeper, or even a Caller of the Claw, like there's a lot of opportunity where this card just gets us the thing back from our graveyard that lets us make a bunch of tokens and actually, have a board presence again, like after a board wipe or something. So Tashar is very at home in this deck. Very cool.
Fun.
Also known as a very combo-tastic card.
Yes.
Read these next two. These are the two that, again, spoiler alert for the budget report, but these guys are the ones, the tent poles that are keeping our budget a little higher.
Okay, Illhar the Raise Boar. 3 red legendary boar god, trample 6/6. When Illhar attacks, you may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield tapped and attacking. Return that creature to your hand at the beginning of the next end step. And if Illhar ever dies or is put into exile, you may put him in its owner's library 3rd from the top. And that first ability reminds us of Sneak Attack, which is also in the deck. 3 and a red enchantment, red. You may put a creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. It gains haste. Sack it at the beginning of the next end step. Sneak Attack has you sacking the creature. Illhar has it returning to your hand.
Absolutely. So these guys are a little expensive, but there's a second part of this deck that is a second part. I guess it's kind of like a fourth part now. But we have some of these like bigger creatures in the deck actually that we same thing have like an ETB trigger or a dice trigger, like a Molten Primordial, for example, is one that just jumps right to my mind. What's the one? There's like the Armada worm, is that what it's called? The Selesnya one that makes a 5/5 token. It's a 5/5 worm when it ETBs. So we've got some of these bigger creatures that also do these things. And Illhar and Sneak Attack are really great ways to get those guys into play in a cheap way where we can still, they're still being sacrificed, which means we can still get or Sneak Attack's making us sacrifice them. Illhar's bouncing them, but we can use our sack outlets to like keep them on the board permanently because of Saffi's ability. So there's this kind of other weird way that we're going to get value from our creatures as well, right? It's interesting. Okay, one final card here that I wanted to point out again because it was just a really neat include from our Discord, and it's called Kolfinors Urn. It is and this goes with this section of the deck too, where we're talking about the bigger creatures. 3 generic for an artifact. Whenever a creature with toughness 4 or greater is put into your graveyard from play, you may remove it from the game. At end of turn, if 3 or more cards have been removed from the game with Kolfinors Urn, sack it. If you do, return those cards to play under their owner's control.
Wow.
So we can do this Illhar sneak attack type of thing. We can sacrifice some of these bigger creatures. And even if you have 1 or, I don't know, maybe even 2 already on the board, you can just sacrifice them if you have Kolfinors Urn out and then get them back permanently. So even if you cheated them out or whatever, like Kolfinors Urn is going to keep them there for good.
This is wild.
Here's the other thing, though. It keeps them under the urn, like, permanently. You don't need all 3 of them to go at the same time to keep them there. So
right.
like one can die 1 turn, another one can die 1 turn. Then this next turn we can go bam, 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 get 3. Now there's 5 under there, and because we did 3 in the 1 turn, they all come back. So, you have to get a pretty
So you don't have to lose 3 in 1 turn. It just waits until it gets up to 3.
Exactly.
So like yeah, okay, but that doesn't mean you can't do more. This is great for board wipes with big decks.
Yeah, because it's at the end of turn that it looks for it, right? So
yeah,
up until before 3, you can have one there for a couple of turns, and then if you want to trigger it, get the 3 under and then go.
Nice.
Pretty cool stuff. Pretty cool card. Somehow never seen this card before.
Yeah,
I feel like, or maybe I did and it just didn't stick, but it's a very neat card, and
there's 14,000 cards. It's
gonna happen.
It's impossible.
We don't know all of them. Okay, well, yeah, that was
cool.
that was a very neat include there. So gotta reach out, gotta thank our Discord helpers. A lot of them in this one. Like I said, this was like a bit of a scatterbrain thing where we had a lot of different directions and kind of included most of them, to be honest. And some people were more like stoked about that than others. I was like, I'm gonna put this deck together in real life because I love it. And then some people were like, I'm probably not gonna do that. People like a more focused deck. Some people like a less focused deck. It's the way it is. Anyways, I wanted to thank everyone, though. Braves for Robin, Lol, What, Dylan, PH, Pips Don't Lie, Chiefy, Nosrak 2, T-Coats, Mr. Big Benz, Jamon, Knackle Booper, Twin Slug, Matt Fox 7, Dino Pirate, Demir Buffalo, and Red Artifice. We're all in there, given truly like too fast for me to keep up with it when I was in there. Actually live brewing, luckily going back and looking at a bunch of the cards, we saw a lot of these awesome ideas come through. So we've done that. We've thanked our Discord helpers, and now I believe it is time for the budget report. All right, so this one comes in at around depending on where you go, obviously, same things always apply here, but around $130. We're just over that $100 mark, still shy of $150, which is where I like to keep it these days. The TCG low on this one was like 60, so it's like less than half. So you can find some real beat up versions of these cards, and I think that's a much nicer budget for a deck like this. Yeah. Of course, with these combo decks, there's some random pieces just end up being way more expensive than others. So, be aware of that. And if we're talking about pricey cards, well, Sneak Attack comes to mind right away. It's like $15. Illhar was $10. Like I said, these are the 2 most expensive cards of the deck that are really, getting that price up there. You don't need to include this angle. This is the thing. I thought it was interesting and fun, but there are a lot of situations where these cards don't give you as much value as you're wanting. Like Illhar attacks, puts in something that costs 3 mana, you're like, or 2 mana even, you're like, that's okay, but it's not $10 okay. Or Sneak Attack, reducing 3 mana to 1 is like, is this $15? Do I need this? So definitely you could easily cut this portion of the deck, these 2 cards, and even kind of maybe rework the high end of your curve a little bit to reflect that. And I still think you'd have a really streamlined, very good deck. That's the thing. More focus isn't going to hurt this deck. The fact that I have this kind of multi-angle look on it is just the way I like to have fun with this. I like to make the variance be higher that way. That's more fun for me. If that's not what's more fun for you, then cutting these 2 cards, even if it's not for budget uses, is going to be good for you. No budget limit, however, gets us a pretty cool card.
Ooh, Luminous Broodmoth. This is a tough one to like justify personally. $10. 2 white insect, 3/4 flying. Whenever a creature you control without flying dies, return to the battlefield under its owner's control with a flying counter on it. So everyone visits twice. It doesn't exile either. Like, it does go to the graveyard and gets returned. Like, so, and then it can die again, and it's not like it's exiled forever. Like, you can, if you can loop this other ways, that still works.
It just occurred to me what we should keyword this ability as.
What's that?
Unflying.
Unflying? Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yes. Luminous Broodmoth gives things unflying.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is a very big combo piece with Saffi. Anything where you're sacrificing things, obviously. So yeah, this is a great card in the deck, but because we didn't want to go super hard down just the combo route, I didn't include it in, again, budget purposes as well. Right, well, there it is. That's everything. Secret Saffi, half secret Saffi, 25% secret Cole, artifact equipment with sacrifice. It's a lot to put together. It's a lot to play with, but I tried to test as much as I could with this one because I really wanted to see if it was feasible and if I should cut, one part of it. And honestly, it always gave me something. I was always doing something with this deck, and that felt really good. I was never waiting for combo pieces. I was never waiting for things. Like, no matter what I had in my hand, I was always happy to see, even if it was some other piece of something, I was always able to do stuff. The one thing you really wanted was a sack outlet, and we've got enough of them in the deck. I really think that that it's not gonna be a real problem. So I would recommend, if anyone wanted to put this deck together, that they build the cheaper version of it, and then if they're liking it, then go to get the next kind of tier of cards for it, and then if there's a section you particularly like or don't like, you can kind of move within that. This deck has a lot of moving parts, and it's a lot of fun for that reason, I think. Like I said, I think I might put it together in real life and give it a go. But thanks, everyone, for watching. We will be back next week with another deck tech. We'll see you then.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks for watching. If you love what we're doing, consider supporting the show by going to patreon.com/commandersbrew.
And if you want to get any of the cards from our deck list, go to our TCG Player affiliate link below.
That helps us out too. And for a free way to help us out, consider sharing the show with some friends. Like and subscribe, add a comment or two.
See you later.
Bye.